Everybody, it's me, Willow, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm here with another fun video for all of you guys to enjoy. I'm here to break down the season finale of season 3 of House of the Dragon. And oh boy, I can't believe we are finally here. It does not feel like it's been 8 weeks so far since this season began, but oh boy, has it been. 8 episodes are done and over with, and now we have to sit and wait probably about 2 to 3 years for the next season. I believe they are saying season 4, which is going to be the final season from what I'm aware of, is going to come out 2028. So it's like a year and a half ish, I guess, depending on what time of the year it ends up coming out. If it comes out, more near the end of the year or something. But oh my goodness, like it's going to be like 2 years until this new season comes out. And I just feel like it's so good. It just gets better and better each week. And I'm just so disappointed that it's not going to be my Sundays anymore. Like, I just love HBO Sundays. I loved it for Succession, of course, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. I just love it. I love it. The Night of the Seven Kingdoms was also such an enjoyable watch earlier this year. I'm actually kind of thinking about like rewatching that because I feel like I just like really ran through it and I would love to give it a second watch. I just feel like I'd pick up so much more, especially after this season. And I also really want to rewatch Game of Thrones. I've only seen like the first half of Game of Thrones, like the first, I think, like 3 seasons, and then like the middle seasons I haven't seen, and then like the final, like 2 seasons I've seen, I believe. And then I've seen like, sporadic episodes, but I'd love to watch it like, all in one and say I finally have actually completed the Game of Thrones series. I've also would really love to like actually like complete the books, or at least the first book. I do have the whole series and I've just never like stuck to it. Like, I've started the first book a couple times, I've just never pushed my way through, and I've just loved the lore of the Targaryens specifically, but all the other houses are super intriguing as well. I just love the George R.R. Martin, what he's built with this world. And of course, they do take liberties on TV shows. They're not exactly what George has envisioned. Of course, any TV show, they're going to kind of, change a couple things here and there for better entertainment of a TV show. But I also feel like George, he's not hurrying up with those final books anytime soon. So at this point, give it to the TV shows. They're free range. So yeah, I'm excited to break this down with all of you guys. I can't believe it's been 8 weeks of you guys following my breakdowns every single week. So thank you guys so much for hitting the subscribe button and the post notification button. I'm so grateful for all of your guys, support and just following my pop culture content. I cover film and TV reviews. I also am going to the Toronto International Film Festival in September. It is a month away. Oh my goodness. And I'll be giving you guys exclusive front of the line footage from TIFF this year. There's so many amazing films coming out. We're seeing Cynthia Erivo, Hudson Williams, and so many others. Those are just two people I can think of off the top of my head, but I am really, really excited and I can't believe I'm counting the days down. And I'm also on all the major social media accounts. So if you want to give me a follow over on Letterboxd, Serialized, the Awards Expert app, TikTok, and Instagram, I'm all at Willow D Steele on those platforms. Make it easy for you guys to find. So thank you guys so much for all the support. I'm just so grateful for, the subscribers and the different followings on all of my platforms. I do post pretty much daily updates on all those social media accounts. And then I try and be as frequent as possible here on the Willow Steel channel. So thank you guys so much for investing in my pop culture content. And I think you guys have found a great place here because I love breaking TVs down, movies, so many amazing things. It's going to be a fantastic fall gearing up and end of summer. Summer's not done just yet. We do have a couple great movies coming out. The End of Oak Street, I'm so excited for that. I'm hopefully going to see that this week, and then I'll have a review this weekend. Fingers crossed. We will see. My schedule is a little busy this weekend, but I'm excited, guys. So let's break down this episode. You guys have waited long enough to hear my thoughts on the season 3 finale of House of the Dragon. And oh boy, did I think it was a pretty strong episode. I do think I liked last week's episode just a little bit better. I don't know, it just had really good strength all around, and maybe I'm just like, it's hitting me hard that my girl Rhaenyra is just changing so much, and I knew this was going to be inevitable, and I also think it's just such an interesting play on women and power and how they are perceived, and I think that speech that she delivers to the small folks outside the sept after everything goes down, it will go down as one of the most iconic scenes in the Game of Thrones universe for sure. And Emma Darcy, they just killed it this season. If they are not nominated for Emmys, it is going to be such a rigged category. Like I they are such a fantastic actor. They just killed it all season, giving us such an array of emotion. Specifically in this episode, we started with Rhaenyra coming, running through the castle to Damon after Grand Maester Orwyle tells her that Aegon and Sunfire have arisen. She is freaking out. Of course, her claim to the throne is now going to be even more threatened. The fact that, her enemy, Aegon, is back, the king who has been anointed. And I love this scene between Rhaenyra and Damon because I was lacking, lacking this season. And I do love Rhaenyra and Massaria, don't get me wrong. I did say I wanted them to be more like Aegon and the Conqueror and his sister wives. I really was hoping that they would get together, all three of them. I was really hoping that would happen. And no, that didn't happen. Rhaenyra and Damon were just like at heads, the whole season. It felt like she just didn't trust him, and of course everything that went down with Rhaena last week, she just feels like she can't get close to him. And I thought the only like really cute bonding moment they had earlier this season was when Rhaenyra leaves her like queen's room. I guess it's like the king's parlor, and she goes and finds Damon in his bed and they like snuggle in bed. I thought that was super cute, but I thought this scene of them together was super strong. And of course, I always love when we dive deep into the Targaryen lore, and she's freaking out, about the high step. They won't anoint her. And this is, of course, not the first time this gets said. We hear this kind of repeated later in the episode, Rhaenyra using Damon's words. Of course, all season he's been talking about the gods of old Valyria and comparing themselves, the Targaryens, to those gods, and saying that they could fly anywhere they want, they could conquer any place due to their lineage. And he says that their old gods, they outrank any of these new gods, and that she shall not be frightened, and she shall stay strong and move forward and keep her, her throne. And with that, Rhaenyra, she changes and she tells Damon, and I love this moment too. She's like, you know what? We are going to move forward with the siege on Tumbleton. And Damon's just smirking in the background, like, yes, I've been pining all season for this. Thank you for giving us the okay. And she says we are going to root out all the high towers one by one, go through each home and find them and root them out. So really, really big change. She says Hugh will guard the dragon pit and Ulf will go with Damon and meet the Rivermen and the Greybeards at Tumbleton, and they will go against the Greens. And ugh, like this is only the first like 10 minutes of the episode. And then, guys, I got my wish. I wanted more Bella, and I got one scene of Bella, so I guess that was something rather than them just forgetting her like they did with Rhaena, because Rhaena only got mentioned and basically threatened in this episode. Poor girl, no sheep stealer either, so I was kind of disappointed with that, making us wait till next season to find out what happened to poor sheep stealer. And everything that they've done with Rhaena, I feel bad. We could have had Rhaena of Pentos, and I don't mind what they're doing with Rhaena. Like I just feel like I know they have to condense. It's hard to have all these extra characters, especially when they're not like already in the family, like how do we have them connected? So of course, like Nettles, like let's just condense her, make her into Rhaena, have that connection father-daughter rather than kind of like a like a lover and a teacher type thing, with Nettles and Damon in the books. But it's I don't know, I just don't love how they're sidelining Bella and Rhaena so much now that they just don't have, like, I feel like since Jace perished, like Bella, of course, they kind of were putting her in this little love triangle with Adam and Alan, and I just feel like they didn't give them enough screen time for any of this to like really flourish. And this is like the first time we see Bella and Rhaenyra talk since Jace's death. And I've been waiting for this all season since she saw them, like she saw Bella in the corridors earlier, the first time like they come to King's Landing. She's like, oh, I had to bring you here with me. And I thought their confrontation in this episode was honestly worth the wait. I really, really enjoyed it. And she basically just tells Rhaenyra that you just use people and you spit them out, and you really only want me for my dragon. And she does not like that. She does not like being called out and being made to seem like the monster, because this is another thing she also tells Damon when she gives him the orders to go to Tumbleton: do not make me look like a monster. But girl, you're doing that yourself. You're doing that yourself. So she like she like doesn't slap Bela, but she like grabs her very firmly, by the chin, and basically says, I could blame you for Jace's death. Like, okay, girl, it's not like it was Jace who had you locked in the room and forced Bela, his betrothed, to come, in the middle of the battle. Like, not her fault. She was at risk as well. So I makes me mad. It makes me mad. But she then starts to threaten Rhaena and say, "Oh, well, you know what? Like, what could happen to Rhaena?" And of course, she's also worried about Lord Corlys too, her grandfather. She's like, he's being held captive in Tumbletown. You want to lay siege there with the dragons? Like, are we not going to plan a rescue mission? Send me. And Rhaenyra grounds her. After this whole threat with dragon and everything, she grounds Bela and then threatens Rhaena to like keep Bela in submission. And she's basically like, "Oh, well, you know what? Corlys, he laid his own bed. He should have been here as my hand. He shouldn't have been out fighting the triarchies, having a hissy fit." And I do agree with her, because if he was there in King's Landing being her hand like she was supposed to be, rather than Alan, he wouldn't have been kidnapped, and Team Green wouldn't have been able to use him as a pawn. So I do agree with her in that sense, but I don't love that she is grounding Bela. I just, again, I wanted more Bela this season, and I'm disappointed I didn't get more of her, especially with the Alan and Adam. And then Alan and Adam are having this like fight as well halfway through the episode, because Adam's upset that they also are not going after Lord Corlys, and Alan's like, well, you know what? I'm the new Lord of Driftmark and the Tides. So I'm gonna take leadership, and he would want us to do this. And I'm just like, okay, you letting this get to your head, Alan. And I was really rooting for Alan too, and it feels like he is losing his way. But yeah, pretty strong this whole first half of the episode. We then end up going to Orban and Darren in Tumbleton, and he ends up knighting Darren because he's like, oh, you can't go into battle, you can't become a king without being knighted first. So, somebody completely like not worthy of being knighted. And I just think it's so interesting because in the books, Darren the Daring is like a title that he earns from riding to Sauron into battle. And this is something that is alluded to the whole episode, that poor Darren does not want to be seen as a craven, does not want to be seen as like a horrible king that let his men die, had children be put on the front lines trying to tour the attacker. He wants to, be out there with the people, and Gwen's like, "Oh no, you can't go out there." And I'm like, "Get him on the damn dragon." The poor dragon is chained in the sept, and the whole season I'm so disappointed. I really thought we were going to get to see Tessera on Fly, especially with Darren the Daring just being mentioned so many times. But it seems like they really are changing a lot of things. And with the fact that it's like the maesters who like primarily wrote, you know, the book and like had the history. So of course, some things could have gotten incorrect and not always 100% factual. Like I'm like, okay, we can play some things up. Like I guess, his name was Darren the Daring, so we assume that he went into battle. And I'm hoping, next season we do get to see him ride into battle with the dragon. It just seems like such a waste to have the dragon. Like same with Dreamfire. Like, don't I'll get into that later, but I was disappointed, I know it's expensive. Like there was also this other scene, I think it was with Caraxes outside of Tumbleton, and Damon's like on his horse or something, or maybe he was on Caraxes, I don't know. But it was like this super epic shot of Caraxes coming down, on the ground, the armies everywhere, Damon's in front, and then they cut the scene. And I was like, okay, I get that the dragon is expensive to do the CGI, but give me the epic landing shot, please. I was mad that they cut that. It's like, it's a show of dragons. Like, I gotta see the dragons. I don't want the dragons chained in the sept. I don't want the dragons in the dragon pit. I want to see the dragons in sky. Like, I don't want to see them dancing. I don't want to see them in the war, but I want to see them flying in the sky, So, yeah, disappointed about that, but we also get to see Ulf. He's in Tumbleton and he's supposed to be working with Ormond and Team Green, but he's just like wasted, so drunk up in the taverns, and he's just ripping on Rhaenyra and Damon, just telling people all the horrible stories about them and just really painting them in such a negative light. And all the people are like laughing about it. And guys, you gotta treat your dragon seeds a little bit better. Like it's kind of insane that they really have such little care for Ulf, Hugh, and Adam. Like they just are like, okay, you know what? You're just going to do what I tell you to. You would basically just be nothingless bastards if we didn't give you this opportunity. And it's like, maybe their life was difficult as bastards, but maybe they had a little bit more freedom and say in their lives and joy and relations. So I loved seeing that, with Ulf and with Hugh as well in this episode, just seeing them like really change up. Like, of course, I want them to be on Team Black because I am fully Team Black, but it's just like this realization, that they have been entirely neglected when they have this power. So, even though, I've always been kind of like wishy washy on the bastard storyline, I didn't love it in season two. Obviously, they were laying a lot of groundwork so we could have them as fully fledged characters here in season three. And I do think by the end, I am like starting to like them a little bit more and like understanding why they would turn and not want to back Rhaenyra anymore. But I do still think maybe they could use a little bit more development, like specifically Adam. I just feel like he hasn't, had like a whole lot of purpose except flying around with Bela this whole damn season. They really didn't give him anything, if I'm being honest, which is like so disappointing. So I hope next season, Adam gets a little bit more screen time along with Bela. But my poor girl Helena is going through it in this episode. She has eaten in days, and Rhaenyra is starting to get, very upset about this. And she really needs like the step to anoint her, and she has all these stresses, coming down on her. So one less thing she wants to worry about is Helena at this point. But I just feel so bad for Helena. It's really, really sad getting to see her in the Godswood. She's just like crying, and the guards are like, "Your hour's up. You must go inside now." So I was just really feeling for Helena in this episode, and the fact that she's crying, and she's the most innocent character out of everybody here in House of the Dragon. So just seeing her suffer the most and just like refusing to eat and having her child suffer, and her, knowing the future and just being haunted by this is just so devastating. And I also think it's really interesting to get to see Massaria is fired. She is told that she is to be sent to Pentos on the Mermaid Kiss and will not to return. Her services are no longer required. And I just thought that was hilarious because after everything that went down in last week's episode, Massaria tried everything in order to keep her place, and she loses it just as fast as she gives everything to Rhaenyra. So honestly, so tragic for Massaria. Of course, she's always been kind of like a snake, that little character that's been weaseling around. But I I do kind of, so I feel like I support kind of like all the characters. I want everybody to like benefit in the end. So it was like really tragic to just see her get used and abused. Like Bela says, like when you're no longer required, she just spits you out and she's like, okay, bye. And to see Helena and Massaria pass each other in the gates, and Masari is like, "You are a prisoner. Aegon has risen. Your child is a threat to Rhaenyra's legitimacy. You are not safe. You will never be freed." And that just sets Helena over the edge. She sees her premonition of the gray mare inside the Red Keep, and it's just so tragic to see her kind of come to the conclusion that she can't let the future happen. Like she doesn't want to cause any pain. And like I also think it's just so interesting because the only time you get to see Dreamfire is in Helena's vision from last week, and that dragon dream of her protecting the dragon's pit. And of course, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Skip ahead if you guys don't want to hear about any spoilers to the end of the series. But the small folks end up running over the dragon pit and attacking the dragons and slaughtering them. And to think that Helena could have been there to defend them, that she doesn't want any beasts to be harmed, like it's just like so. I know she doesn't want to hurt anybody and she doesn't want to wage war, but it's just, it's so tragic to think that these dragons are now gonna be defenseless. And Helena's the only one with that vision and knowledge that the dragons are gonna end. It makes me so sad. Like, of course, I don't want her to have that burden, that responsibility, but it just makes me so sad. And also to think that Dreamfire is left alone, she's so old and she was like so disconnected from Helena in the last few years. And then to see Helena just gone by the end of this episode is just so tragic. I just think about the dragons and Dreamfire and the pity that we didn't get to see them enough, similar to Saron. So very, very tragic, but we see more of Aemond. He's alive after being poisoned by Alicent, of course, and we get this whole story from Alice of how she's like hundreds of years old, and during like the burning of Harrenhal, she lost her son in the fire and she tried everything to bring her son back. And even when she couldn't do anything, she ended up trying to go with him. So basically saying she tried to kill herself so she could be with her son in the afterlife. And she realized that after, praying to the god, doing witchcraft, and then trying to end her life, that she was stuck with this curse of never allowing herself to cross over to be with her son. So, like, the ultimate cruelty. So, let me know if I missed like entirely who she was. I tried to do like a brief little research to see if I could see if she is kind of like a canon character, but it seems like she's kind of made up for the show. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comments down below, but I couldn't find like too much detail about any woman around the burning of Harrenhal. Like there's no wife or anything of the house, so let me know if you guys know if she was actually like in the books or if this is completely made up for the show. And then we go back to Helena, and here is just like such a brutal scene of Rhaenyra and Helena facing off, and she won't eat, and Rhaenyra's like, "You must eat for the baby, like, you have to," and Helena just, like, kills it. She's like, "Our father would hate you for this. You are ugly. Everything you see and do is ugly." and she like starts to talk about this story about like this beetle to try and see if Rhaenyra would be interested in it, and Rhaenyra just completely dismisses her, and she just calls her out. Helena's just like, "You are not this kind queen that you think you are, who you tried to portray and remind yourself are. No, you are cruel, you are ugly." And in this moment, she proves her right, and she ends up having the guards force feed Helena, which, just ends up pushing her even more over the edge. And it's just so tragic to get to see her used and abused like this again when she is the most innocent of everybody. So it's so horrific. And we then go back to Tumbleton, and we see that the small children from the city are being put up on the front lines from Ormond's, commands, and poor Gawain and Darren are just seeing all of this happen and feel like their hands are tied. So they want to try and put something into an act. And Darren's like, I must take flight and go on to Saron. Especially at this point, Ulf is nowhere in sight. He's supposed to have reported to the front lines with Silverwing and be ready to, basically prepare to attack when Team Black arrives, but he's nowhere to be found and nobody can find him. So Gwaine is trying to come up with a plan in order to like hold off time. So he goes down to the dungeons and finds Lord Corlys and decides to use him as like a bargaining tool. We also get to see Rhaenyra in full battle armor, which was so flippin' epic. I love this armor. It's literally something I would die to cosplay so badly. I'm like, should this be my Halloween costume? Should I try and get the chainmail all figured out by October? Do you think I can get it done? I don't know, but I think it's so epic. I loved it. I love that she goes full battle mode. She's like, no more dresses. We're tearing those apart and we are putting on our full battle regalia. I love that she's in the chainmail headpiece and she just walks into her epic little carriage thing and Joffrey's following her behind. Oh my god, I loved all the memes that were like, oh, he's awake now. He just woke up like this, just like his brothers mogging, behind mommy, his first duty. It's hilarious. And I also love that he gets to wear like the crown as well. We've never got to see them really in any of the crowns except for like Rhaenyra and Aegon and Viserys. So I loved getting to see Joffrey in his crown. I thought that actor was so adorable, and he actually gave a lot of great emotion too, because we got to see in the little carriage that Rhaenyra passes Aegon's vision over to Joffrey, like she did with Jace. And of course, Jace passed away with that knowledge, so she has to continue to pass it down her lineage, like Viserion did for her. And of course, they make one of the biggest changes from the novel, from the lore here. And this is where I honestly don't know how I feel about all of this. Rhaenyra and Team Black, they make their way up into the Sept and they're like, you must anoint me now. The High Sept's like, that's not happening. Aegon and Sunfire have been resurrected. You know, makes more sense. He is the king that has risen. We will not be, anointing you, princess. And Rhaenyra takes great offense to that. She's like, I'm the queen. The old man forgets. She has Alan kill the High Septon inside the Sept, which is basically damning you for life, which the High Septon tells him. So such a brutal scene, and Rhaenyra relaying to Alan, you are the blood of old Valyria. Our old gods outrank these new gods. And he's like, you know what? That is just the encouragement I need. And he just guts the High Septon. It's crazy. And they just completely walk right out. He's crying, and Rhaenyra delivers this huge epic speech to all the small folks, saying that she is the rightful queen, she's the rightful heir, that her father told her of Aegon the Conqueror's vision, and she's telling Aegon the Conqueror and the stories of the Targaryens and old Valyria, and the 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 vision of the doom and how they escaped to Dragonstone with only a few dragons and then everybody perished in the doom, and how this lineage, has been passed on from Targaryen to Targaryen to Targaryen. And in Aegon's vision, he sees, the prince that is promised, and it's a Targaryen. So she's basically saying, the High Tower line does not fulfill this prophecy. So I am the prince that is promised. She says it in High Valyrian. So epic. But we have Grandmaster Orwell on this side. We got like another soldier on this side or something, and they're looking at each other like, this girl is nuts. We have Joffrey in the background going like, what's going on? My first day of duty and mom's already going crazy. And I'm like, okay, obviously this huge change, um, Aegon's vision, this prophecy, it's supposed to be a secret. It's supposed to be this really tight-lipped thing that's only passed down from the Targaryens to Targaryens. And then when the Targaryen lineage ends, that's why, the secret stops being passed along. And that's why Dany has to figure it out herself. And it's such a big change that while I was watching it, I was like, okay, guys, what are you guys doing? Because earlier in this season at the small council, Daemon and Rhaenyra were talking about the vision at the small council meeting. Not even like High Valyrian, they were just talking about it. Everybody could hear. And here we go, she tells it to a crowd of small folks. And of course, I think they're trying to play it off that, oh, she's crazy. She's not truthful. But I'm like, you didn't think they would mention it at all in the history books? Uh, like at all? Like they're just playing it off as like her madness. Like everybody was like, oh, we heard her mention Aegon the Conqueror's prophecy and how this lineage goes through the Targaryen blood and the High Tower lineage does not let this prophecy happen. Like, is it just because they're so reliant on the sept and she's just like completely disavowed the sept and is just fully going to the gods of old Valyria? And of course, this is, the religion of the seven is the religion of the small folks, of the people. And that disconnect between the Targaryens and the small folks and them holding themselves above the small folks. Again, like imagine your queen or your king coming up to you and saying, my gods are better than your gods. Like, ooh, like heated in the streets, guys. So it was a very interesting scene because they're obviously trying to get us to interpret that they end up just like never mentioning the prophecy because they assume that she's mad, that she's the Targaryen, toss a coin, like one is crazy and one is sane. So yeah, I'm not sure how I'm feeling about that because obviously that's kind of always how they were lining up Rhaenyra the Cruel. Of course, she can't just like not be mad, but it just it makes me just so upset because I really do think she was an heir, she was the rightful heir. She was named from her father. It just drives me insane, how all this happens and then she ends up becoming the bad guy in the end. And I'm like, what's happening here, But also during all this chaos, Massaria ends up escaping her little tailage, like she's being taken in a cart to the boat and she ends up escaping during all of this. We see more Queen of the Bastards graffiti, and then we end up going back to Tumbleton, and we have Lord Corlys, Gawain, Daemon, and Roddy the Ruiner all here trying to do this kind of like plea bargain of, oh, you can have Lord Corlys back if you end up agreeing to our terms of letting Darren rule in, the Reach. He can be in Old Town and he can guard over there. And Daemon's like, that's ain't happening. Rhaenyra is the true queen. She will not be dividing and conquering. And then Corlys, he speaks up and he's like, like there are seven kingdoms for a reason. Like, why can't we have different, representatives and parlays in different parts of the massive Westeros. And honestly, I'm like, it makes a lot of sense because I feel like each kingdom, has such vastly different cultures. It makes only sense to have like a representative, but then it's a democracy, right? I guess you don't have to necessarily elect the official, right? It could just be a royal house member from each, kingdom. But it's interesting how this is put forth, and this could be a sign of peace. And Damon's like, "You are a traitor, Corlys, for even proposing something like this." And he's like, "At the end of the day, I just want peace. I just want this all to end." And of course, Damon's like, screw that. He strangles Gawain and he's like, "You know what? You can go back and tell Ormond that we are coming in." And he takes Corlys as his own prisoner, lets Gawain go, and he's ready to ride Caraxes into Tumbletown for real. And man, it's crazy. It's real crazy to get to see Roddy the Ruiner too. It's upsetting that we didn't get to see more of him. I felt like he was such a sideline character. Same with that Stark character. She ended up killing Sir Christian Cole. Like, she's such a big character in the books. And Alyssa, I think that's her name, Alyssa, and she ends up like marrying Cregan Stark later. It's disappointing that she literally got one line. So disappointing that House Stark didn't get more representation in this season, even though they were always lingering in the background. But the Greybeards were fantastic. They were the first ones to attack, and Damon's like, basically, you have to get inside the walls, and then you guys can die. If you guys want to die, go for it, but you got to get inside and penetrate the walls. And getting to see Roddy climb up those ladders and the kids, on the walls, he ends up like slashing Roddy, and then Roddy smashes this poor kid's face in with his axe. It was brutal. And then he ends up coming for Ormond, and this is after Ormond was able to find Ulf, by the way. As the battle is beginning, he finds Ulf in the toilets with his pants down. He's passed out. He's like, "You gotta get on your damn dragon. This is what I am paying you for in ale and everything. And you are just ridiculous. You're drunk. You're a loser." And he's like slapping around in the streets. Exactly what Damon did to him a few weeks ago. And I'm like, "You gonna work with him now?" And Ulf, nope, he goes on his dragon. He goes on Silverwing and he burns Team Black, but he also turns around and he burns Team Green as well. So poor Tumbleton ends up getting burned in Dragonfire from Silverwing and Ulf. And Caraxi, she really held her own and didn't, really use any Dragonfire, really held back, just used it to burn down the front gate, which was hilarious. And I love that Damon was like, they put all these kids in front of the gate, and Damon's like, "Get out of the way!" And then there's like two kids still there, and he's like, "Dracarys," and he just lets Caraxi goes. It's brutal, and Caraxi just through the gate. It was epic. It was so cool. And he gets to be on the ground fighting, and he fights against Rolex, and just so much epic stuff. And we have Roddy up on the walls with all of his graybeards, able to penetrate the walls, and he ends up finding Ormond, sticks him where the sun don't shines, and said, "That's a proper fucking from the north." And then Ulf comes in with his dragon and burns them with the dragon fire. And poor Ormond's like, "No." But then Roddy's in the background going, "Yeah." He's like, "This is the best way to go out, dragon fire." I don't know if that's the best way to go. I feel like it'd be probably pretty brutal, but an epic way to die for sure if you're a Greybeard. But we get to see Damon on the streets, and I thought this was very, very interesting to see that he has been pining for this battle all last season, all this season. All he's wanted to do was blood and carnage. He is the rogue prince, of course, and he sees this brutal death and ruin and carnage that has happened all over Tumbletown to these small folks, to these children, to these women. And he, I think, is slowly realizing maybe this is not what he wanted. Like, this is not the vision that he had. And he's losing as well. He's fighting against Roxanne. He's losing. The only reason why he's able to kind of take advantage is because the roof ends up collapsing in because of Ulf and Silverwing, burning down all the structures in the city. And he's like walking around the streets, and Corlys ends up coming up to him and is like, "We are leaving. The city is lost. We are going home." Defeated. Very similar to the Battle of the Gullet, I believe, where they, I would say, this isn't a complete loss because I do think Team Green suffered a little bit more as this was like their home base and the town is completely succumbed to Dragonfire. They lost their dragon of Ulf, that little, pull that they had, and they lost Ormond, who was basically their leader. So obviously Team Green takes a lot of massive hits here, but Team Black is no better. They are also taking a lot of hits here as well. So the fact that they have to kind of leave with their tails behind their legs is intriguing, and Daemon's out there losing, and Corlys has to reel them back in and is like, "You could have taken the offer of peace. We could have ended this, but no, you decided to push forward." And yeah, I thought it was just very intriguing to get to see how this battle really kind of like plummets both sides and really pushes them into not great advantages. Also at Harrenhal, we get to see Aegon arrive on Sunfire, and I thought it was hilarious how Aemon like wakes up from his dream, like having all these like visions from Harrenhal, and he hears the wings and he thinks it's Vhagar coming back for him. And I was also like, okay, maybe it's Vhagar. Then I was like, oh, I don't know if it's Vhagar. And then you see Sunfire fly in, all graceful like, and land down. Of course, very dark, far away because it's expensive to render these dragons. And Aegon comes hobbling up, slaps his younger brother. "I'm alive, imbecile brother." Like, his delivery was just perfect. It was such like a crazy, again, the Targaryen madness just like seeping through that energy of the dragon, just bursting and making you go a little bit haywire. And I thought he delivered such a brilliant scene. As much as I hate Aegon, you know, Tom is giving such a performance, just A plus all season. So I love that he's like, "Oh, you want my forgiveness, brother? Well, you have to get on your dragon. We're going to go find Vhagar, wherever the heck she is, and then we are going to go to King's Landing and tell Rhaenyra that this is my crown, and we are going to burn that bitch, and then maybe I'll forgive you after all of that." And Alice comes in and is like basically trying to keep Aemon there, She doesn't want to be alone. Like those their whole conversation with who she reveals who she is and the fact she has the curse, she says that she's been alone for a really long time, and she knows that Aemon has been alone as well, and she feels like they can be together. And Aemon says that she is his betrothed, and Aegon's just like not having it. He's like, "Nope, you are mine now. We are going into battle and we are taking out Rhaenyra." So, of course, we have that to be excited about next season. I'm really, really excited to see the brothers, team up because I feel like we've never gotten that. Like, it's tragic that we got to see Luke and Jace kind of team up a little bit, but I felt like, their last team up where they're like, "We are going to be the messengers," end up in such like a sour, horrible note in Luke's death. So getting to see Aemond and Aegon kind of team up next season, I think is going to be a lot of fun. So I'm very, very excited for that. While we are in Tumbleton, I've kind of like didn't really touch on this that much. I was mentioning Ulf, how he's in the taverns getting drunk, but we also have Hugh, a couple weeks ago, he was looking for Kat. He went into Tumbletown in disguise, tried to get her out, and she was like, "I'm not leaving with you." And then when he's supposed to be in King's Landing guarding the dragon pit, he ends up coming to Tumbletown to try and find her. He's screaming her name all over the city, and Daemon sees him. and he kind of like gives a little smirk. So I'm like, is he acknowledging that he's not supposed to be there? Is he acknowledging that he's defying him? Is he acknowledging, oh yeah, we kind of forgot, his wife is here? Again, them neglecting the dragon seeds. And earlier in the episode, we saw the Greybeards. They had entered into Kat's family's home, and then we later see Hugh find her, and the whole family, including Kat, has been killed. So it's really, really sad to get to see those ramifications of war and how the innocent people of Tumbletown, who their city was taken over by Team Green, was taken over by this war, they end up being the people who are affected the most innocent. And I think this leads perfectly into poor Helena's death and how this whole episode she was just pushed to the brink and she ends up jumping out the window. Just so tragic to get to see such an innocent life lost, and she dreamed it and she put it in her tapestry, and she knew her death was imminent. It's just so sad. You think that these dreams are possibly going to lead to something else, and she just ends up losing her life. Such a tragic death. I really do think the beginning death of Jace passing at the beginning of the season, the Battle of the Gullet, and then ending like these bookmarks of these deaths, and having Helena here, having jumped out the window, landing on the spears. They didn't want her to jump out. They literally had them there in case she was going to try and escape and jump out. It's just, it's horrific. It's horrific. Everything that they did to her is just so horrific. Like I don't know what to say. And she has her tapestry there, and Rhaenyra, she's told of the news, and she ends up going to Helena's quarters and seeing the tapestry, seeing her death sewn there, but then she goes past it and she ends up seeing herself on the Iron Throne, and there seems to be a lot of blood surrounding that Iron Throne, but she's on the Iron Throne, and that is all she needs to know. It's insane. She ends up closing the window and walking away. And she's not like, Cersei basking in what she's created, or us just being left with the openness of Tommen, passing. It's we're going to try and forget about that. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Everything is as it should be. It has been prophesized. I am meant to be on the Iron Throne, and she has concluded this. And if anything, she concludes it because she killed herself, and she had prophesized that as well in the tapestry. So, flippin' insane, man. Such an insane season for sure. I, yeah, like so insane. I also noticed that in the tapestry, we also see Daenerys giving birth to her dragons. So I also thought that was super cool. Somebody pointed that out on social media, so I thought I would include that here, because I was also wondering, okay, girl, like that's not the end of the tapestry. You got to go to the very end and see that you don't remain on the Iron Throne for very long, unfortunately. So yeah, like what a fantastic episode. We also just left with like, where's Darren? Because we don't know what's happened to him after the Battle of Tumbletown. We know Gwen's okay, but we don't know where Darren is. So I'm wondering if he's gonna ride off on his dragon. I need to Sauron in season 4. Please give me a scene of Darren, the Darien, and to Sauron flying in battle or something. I need something more of them. I can't have her chained in the crypt all season 4, so please give me more of them. And I also really liked, I took note here that, rather be anointed, by like the oils of the sept, Rhaenyra ends up being anointed by the blood of the sept. I thought that was super intriguing as well. They are the blood of the dragon and they get anointed by blood. Crazy, crazy. And I do think all of Damon and him in that battle, and him kind of like understanding the chaos that they have ensued, is very intriguing as well. So Yeah, like a crazy, crazy season finale. I definitely think it's super strong. It's leading me up to be super excited for season 4, and it's so, so far away. I know I have nothing but more devastation to look forward to, but the show is just so extremely well executed. I think these costumes are just out of this world. Of course, I love every little dragon moment. Last week, the dragon standoff was incredible, and getting to see Caraxi in full battle was so fun today, and then also seeing Silverwing in the battle as well, just beseeching Tumbletown with her dragon fire. Like, oh my goodness, so scary. Also to think that Vermithor and Silverwing are like mated together, and I'm wondering if that's going to kind of lead them a little bit more to having Hugh and Ulf kind of like team up, them being kind of in the middle, neither team green, team black, because neither of them helped them at the end of the day. And I'm wondering what's going to happen with Adam and Bela as well, because it seems like they are very kind of teetering on the edge of team black as well, and not knowing their full place of just being used and abused. So we also get to see a very brief scene of Alicent. She's not in this episode at all until the very end when Helena passes away, and we get to see Alicent on her journeys, and she does have soldiers with her. I was questioning that. I was like, after she escaped Harrenhal, I was like, is she just on the King's Road by herself all the way back to King's Landing after what Kat said happened to her? Woof, she had a couple swordsmen with her. So she ends up being greeted by all these butterflies, which are obviously a representation for Helena, but just showing again that Alicent doesn't know what waits her when she comes back to King's Landing. And the one thing that she wanted, was her daughter. So brutal, brutal, brutal. So let me know what you guys think about this episode down in the comments. I'd love to hear all of your guys' thoughts down below about the season finale. I really did enjoy it. I just think all this lore was brilliant. I loved bringing Joffrey in. I loved all the dragons. I loved Alan really trying to like prove his worth and like try and, show himself as this Lord of Driftmark. And yeah, like I just felt like it was very well executed and had a lot of fun. Obviously, some major changes, specifically with Aegon's prophecy being told to everybody. So I don't know how I feel about that for sure, but I guess we're gonna play it off as if she was mad and they just don't decide to write it into the history books, which doesn't entirely make sense to me. But again, I guess it's kind of a representation of women in power and how often when they have power and they start to exhibit those traits of being power hungry, they're seen as crazy or like just like unhinged. And rather than like, if it was Robert Baratheon up there, like man, or even, Aegon the Conqueror, like these people, these male heirs, that take these crowns. Even Aegon here, the usurper, like come on, so yeah, let me know what you guys thought. If you guys enjoy my content, film, TV reviews, I'm going to Toronto International Film Festival next month. I also cover awards predictions, all that fun stuff here on my channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the post notification button so you don't miss out on any of my coverage here. I post very frequently and trying to be a little bit more on top of things. I try and post multiple times a week for you guys. If you ever have a suggestion of what you want to see, you can let me know in the comments down below as well. I always read the comments and try to reply back to them. So thank you guys so much for leaving them and interacting with the cinema loving community. If you guys enjoyed my review and breakdown of the season finale of season 3 of House of the Dragon, make sure you like the video as well. Give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys for interacting, because all of that really pushes me out to the algorithm so I can meet other like-minded folks just like you guys in the cinema loving community. This was honestly such a brutal, brilliant, and just outstanding episode all along in the Game of Thrones universe, and I'm excited to rewatch The Night of the Seven Kingdoms and fully get through a full watch of Game of Thrones by the time the new season comes out of House of the Dragon. Man, it's going to be a long, long wait. But thank you guys for being here for the past 8 weeks, and I can't wait for the next adventure for us here. Make sure you guys check out all of my coverage of the season in the playlist. It'll be linked above, and it's also on my channel. So thank you guys so much. Until my next video, keep getting lost in cinema. Bye.